Hello, Internet. It's Daniel with Driving and Dragons, here today with a timely D&D Reacts video. I dropped my chaotic good alignment video yesterday, and it wasn't 10 minutes after that the massive 487,000 subscriber Pointy Hat D&D channel dropped this video on alignment is garbage and how to fix it. So, of course, I have to do a reaction to it. Now, Pointy Hat is a massive tour guide. That's what I'm going to call him, a tour guide. Why is he a tour guide? Because all he is a channel for tourists, people who are Johnny-come-latelys to the game, who were more or less drawn in by things other than a desire to play this type of game or a history of loving fantasy or this style of interaction and play. People who are brought in by your Critical Roles and your Stranger Things. And I do not have high hopes at all for him to even understand the very base of what alignment is. This, I'm just going to go out and say it, is going to be very much a 5e centric, surface level, exactly how you should never use alignment video. And alignment is going to be garbage because the person who is trying to use it is using it in a garbage manner. A hammer is a garbage screwdriver. It just is. Sure, you can beat the side of a hex nut or a screw or something and eventually get it to turn, but that doesn't mean you're using the hammer right. And it doesn't mean the hammer is a bad tool just because you don't know how to use it. So we're going to look into that. I'm going to do everything I can. It's a long video. Luckily for me, I guess, and I will apologize right now in advance for some of the editing cuts that are probably going to be happening here, because Pointy Hat tends to have a bunch of filler nonsense that I'm going to have to cut out in terms of like video clips and stuff. So there might be some choppiness in the edit. Forgive me for that ahead of time. But we're going to jump into this. I'm going to do my normal thing to try and keep things concise by more or less trying to let him finish a little bit of a segment before I jump in and start going after him on it. Though I think it will be a little difficult for me on this one because a 5e video on alignment from somebody who has a very, very just surface understanding of the game and how it works is going to be tough for me. I will give Pointy Hat at least a little bit of credit here. He does tend to have at least some mediocre familiarity with the existence of older systems. He's way better than Jenny D when it comes to things that happened prior to 2014. But in all honesty, I'm not expecting a lot. I'm expecting to have to correct a whole bunch of bad information on this video. So while you're here, you're going to be here with me for a while watching this one. So take some time to like, share, and subscribe. Join the Patreon. Check out the membership programs. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how I can do a live stream that both my Patreon members and my channel members can watch. That way, you don't have to be a YouTube member to see the live streams when you're already helping me out with Patreon. And I do really greatly appreciate everybody who has signed up over on Patreon and anybody who has signed up for a channel membership, because and it really helps the channel a lot. And it's going to help us get that Dodge Dart down here and repaired and given away in shorter order. But let's go ahead and get on with this, because this one's going to take a minute, and I have a feeling I'm going to be stopping more than usual.
Hello, chaotics, lawfuls, and neutrals. One of the most culturally enduring aspects of D&D is its alignment rules. They are enduring enough to have featured in every D&D edition. They're enduring enough to have become a meme. They're synonymous with D&D's identity, a game I love. And yet, there's nothing I hate more about this game than alignment.
Say,
I love alignment rules.
I would never say that.
So today we're taking a very close look at alignment, its history, its place in the game. We're examining why I think it's so bad, and then we're taking a stab at actually fixing it in this brand new episode of Tip of the Hat. This is a behemoth of a topic, so I'm gonna be jangling internet keys in front of your face the whole time. And there are no better internet keys than a numbered list. I've decided to give these titles after made-up alignments because I felt like it. Try to glean the thinly veiled hatred, plainly visible through the titles. Number 1, Neutral Bible School Teacher.
Okay, so he's about to get into, I think, a definition of alignment here. Neutral Bible School Teacher, what is alignment? This is really going to set the tone for everything here. I do think the Fedora tipping atheist is probably a great meme for him to put for tip of the hat, because I have a feeling that his tips are going to have about as much basis in fact and validity and research behind them as the typical internet atheist comment does, which would be none.
What is alignment? Okay, so to understand why alignment is so in my opinion, we gotta understand what is alignment. There's 1,000 explainers out there, and I want to get into more interesting stuff than defining terms, so I'm gonna go through this one fast and then go on to explain actual alignments. Don't worry, I'll give examples of each alignment so you can tell me I'm wrong about them in the comments to boost my engagement. In the 2024 PHP, they don't really get into the nitty-gritty history and implications of this system. They just give examples of different alignments, which is a better way to introduce the concept to players, and I'm gonna do just that. But what is alignment just generally? Well, it's complicated. Alignment is more than just a given person's voting preferences. Yes, it's supposed to define your morality, good, evil, neutral, and your stance on order, lawful, chaotic, or neutral again, but it's also a living thing, kinda. In D&D cosmology, there are planes, basically universes, that are governed by alignments. A bunch of them, actually. There are also gods that exemplify and embody alignments, or are ruled by them. Law and chaos are players in this world, if not named characters. The best way I've come up with to explain this is that in traditional D&D, law, chaos, good, evil, and the enlightened centrist take of both, those are as real and tangible as gravity and time in the world of D&D, which makes them kind of hard to get rid of. Let's put a pin on that. But all this cosmology stuff is neither here nor there. What about what people actually care about? In practice, what is alignment actually? It's everyone's favorite part, example section.
Okay, so let's start off. A lot here to unpack and a lot that's wrong. Starting off, he goes with, we don't want to get into a bunch of defining words and stuff. Well, defining your terms is extremely important if you're going to have any level of detail or any level of just veracity to what you're saying. They're important. You have to know what you're talking about. The worst thing he says in this whole thing, let's give him his credit first. The best thing he says is that it's more than just who you vote for. And absolutely, it's not that simplistic. But the worst thing he said is, in the D&D 5e handbook, they just give you examples of what each one is, which is the best way to introduce it to players. No, absolutely not. That is horrible, and it's what has led to these garbage takes on alignment. You don't just need examples. I said this before when I was talking about back in the day when I was kickboxing, fighting mixed martial arts, and when I was training fighters. If I was teaching somebody something in martial arts, I thought it was very important that they learned the theory. They learned why a move worked, not just how to do it. I didn't just give them an example of a kick or a throw or a joint lock or something of that nature. I showed them why it was working and what the principle that made it work was. Because if I just give you an example, all you get is how to do that move. If I teach you how that move works, I teach you 1,000 moves because you start to see it in other places. That is critical with alignment. You don't take away the inner workings of explaining to them what it is supposed to be so that they can view those examples in the proper light and apply them to their characters. Simply slapping stupid shit on there like Robin Hood is chaotic good really doesn't teach them how alignment should work. It just says, I should act like this. And what happens when I read a Robin Hood story from 1400 and you read a Robin Hood story from 1800 and somebody else just watched the Disney movie? They're all completely different. So yes, the definitions are super important. And then another one that he kind of screwed up there is he was talking about good, evil, chaos. And this just points to a very high level view, a very surface level view of alignment, which is radically incorrect. It is the moral axis and it is the ethical axis. It's not the order side. It's not your views on order. It is how your brain organizes things to achieve your goals.
So as I said, alignment is defined on two axes. Axi. It's defined by two axe body sprays.
axes, and here we go.
Moral axis, good, neutral, and big bad meanie zucchini. And the order axis, lawful, neutral, and spork. And by mixing and matching both, you get your character's alignment. Okay, let's get to the actual examples.
Oh, God. First off, a little prophetic on my side because he just kind of mentioned it earlier, and he even calls it the order axis, further cementing the fact that he doesn't know what he's talking about. He is very surface level when alignment, as I've always said, is a 10,000 yard view. It is a core concept that is not something that's considered on the surface level. If you're talking it as your views on order, your order axis, what you're doing is you're talking about frontline decision making at this point, which is completely 1000% wrong. It is not how you consider society, and you don't get it from society. You choose to be part of society and to protect the systems and structures of society because that's what makes sense to you. And then he goes into you mix and match to make your alignment. No, you don't. There are 9 alignments. They are not 9 combinations of 5 alignments. You are lawful good. You are chaotic good. You are lawful evil. You are chaotic evil. You are not lawful and good, chaotic and good, so on and so forth. Lawful good is a kind of good. Chaotic evil is a kind of evil. Not I'm chaotic and evil. It's literally I am the chaotic version of evil. I am evil organized in this fashion. But at my core, I'm evil. If I'm lawful neutral, I'm neutral, but in a lawful fashion. And I see, like, for instance, if I'm dedicated to balance, I see a lawful structure as the best way to keep that. And I don't see it that way because society taught it to me or because it was pushed into my head by society. I see it that way because that's the way I already thought. And when I saw it, it made sense to me.
Assign main pop acts for each of them for those of you in the audience. You know who you are. And let's start with the very good boy tiers first. Numbered list instead of a numbered list. You know what's coming. Number A, lawful good. You do the right thing as defined by society, following its rules. You fight injustice, protect the innocent, go to bed on time, eat your vegetables, and call the police if teens are skateboarding on the street. You narc.
That's illegal what you guys do!
Superman is the de facto example. Captain America, when he's written in character. Ned Stark is what happens if you are this too much. Caitlin from Arcane was giving this a bunch, but I haven't seen the second season, so who knows? Honestly, just putting Superman here 3 times will just do the trick. Number B.
Okay, so right off the bat, doing what society says is good. No, no, no. You are good. You are there to help others. You are selfless. You are there to put others first. You see a lawful society, an ordered, structured society with traditions and systems as the best way to ensure that the most good is done throughout the world. It does not mean that you just adhere to the system, nor does it mean that you just adopt what the system tells you is good or what society tells you is good. That's not how it works. If society or if the system is bad, you look to change it, but you just don't go out and change it. You look at it, you examine it, you figure out, can it be fixed or does it need to be replaced before you take action, as opposed to like the chaotic who might just tear it down. But no, it is not you're dictated by society. You act in that quote unquote lawful manner because that is what makes sense to you at the core of your being.
B, neutral good. This is the normal one for normal people. You do the right thing, and you're not going to go out of your way to break rules, but you're not dogmatically adhering to them every time. Gandalf is the de facto example. Captain Kirk from Star Wars is this. Spider-Man is also this. I would put Sansa here, and don't trust anyone that says otherwise. Leia also goes here to me, although there's a case for her to go in. Number C.
Okay, I'm not going to get into his actual examples. Let's just leave it that there are a few that are very much wrong in there. The only 2 I'm going to mention are Gandalf and Leia. He is radically wrong on both of them. They would both very much be lawful. But when we look at this, probably the worst thing he said when he came to neutral good was, this is pretty much everybody. This is the normal. No, it's not. Neutral is normality. Neutral is what everybody is. And I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out even further. Neutral is generally seen as the default because it's the baseline. You define good as being more selfless, more giving to others from the baseline. You define evil as being more selfish and more self-serving from the baseline. So no, the normal person is not neutral good. That's just, it's just wrong.
Chaotic good. You do good. And what good is basically defined by you and you alone. If you think that good is making sure someone disappears to save countless others, a chaotic good character will do that. I often explain this as the rebel alignment. Vigilantes also tend to go here. Robin Hood is the de facto example for this one. Luffy, One Piece is like 100% this. I've never seen her mentioned, but Mary Poppins feels like a very measured chaotic good. Tyrion Lannister in the show, and I would say the books up to a certain part, is this. Okay, on to neutral tone.
Okay. Once again, everybody here should be able to look at the examples and see just how bad he is with some of the people that are included in chaotic good here. And I'm going to focus on this, the core sentiment where he really screws up alignment as a whole. Good is defined by you and you alone. No, it is not. Alignment is not relative. It is not based on your thoughts and opinions. Good and evil are objectively defined. And it's your nature that fits good or evil. It's not you defining what is good or evil. If you personally and individualistically define any of these, they are absolutely meaningless. And that is why alignment in 4E and 5E is such a dumpster fire, because they tried to pander to postmodern moral relativism, and it does not work.
Number D, lawful neutral. This one is hard to understand. Basically, this is a person that acts following a code, either the law of the land, and maybe like a religious doctrine, or a personal moral code. But they do not even care a little bit about the code being good, evil, or neither.
This is the way.
This is the way.
If you're a religious hermit on top of a mountain that will not run away a runaway to the cops, but also will not help or talk to said runaway because you have taken a vow of silence, you're this. It's all very wuxia, movie master. Examples are hard to find, but I've consulted my people who care about superheroes oracles, and they tell me that Amanda Waller is this. I would put Javert from Les Miserables as the de facto example myself. Judge Dredd is also 100% this, like to the point he feels inspired by it. The entirety of the Jedi Council is like supposed to be lawful good, but often feels more lawful neutral, especially in expanded universe stuff. So there you go. Number E, true neutral.
So, lawful neutral, he really messes up here, okay? He really messes up with the lawful neutral side of things because just like he said, you know, the ethical axis is the more difficult to define. It is the more difficult to speak of. And when you can't get your head around the concept that this is a 10,000 yard view, that this is not surface level, that it's not the society that influences the character, it's that the character is already naturally predisposed towards that, then you get this idea where you're struggling to atomize it because it's not something that easily fits that way. It's not like morality where there's feeling involved, where there's, you know, a personal examination involved. And where he gets it, it's not just you follow a code. That's more of thinking in the wrong direction. Lawful neutral, you know, whether you look at neutral as balance or simply just being somewhere in the middle, just means that your brain functions in that ordered fashion and values that stability and that predictability, regardless of whether or not you're selfish or selfless, or because it is an instrument of the balance between the two.
Centrist to end all enlightened centrist. True neutral is the Gen X apathy alignment. Characters like this avoid moral questions and refuse to take sides and do the thing that feels like to them they should be doing at any given time. This is probably the worst alignment. It's so boring. It's also so alien.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
I guess this is the one for the people that reply, "Why you talk politic?" when anyone so much as barely mentions anything. Just kidding. Those people are some other alignment. The Ents from Lord of the Rings, I think, are the de facto example here. Even if they are tertiary tertiary characters at best. Shrek starts as exactly this. The Witchers from The Witcher are supposed to be this, even if they literally never ever are this. Ever. Number F.
Okay. So definitely hit a personal note for me here. He is a fucking moron if he thinks the Ents are neutral. All right. The Ents are slow to move. The Ents are slow to take action because they're trees. They live basically forever. They have these long lifespans. They consider things just like the elves do. And they have a tendency to become sedentary because they sit still for long periods of time. That does not change the way they think. They are definitely in a more ordered society, and they are definitely good. They're the shepherds of trees. Their entire existence is to protect their forests. But that aside, the most boring alignment and the most alien. No, it's the most common. All right, now you could possibly say that a strict adherence to balance of all forces might be a rare philosophical concept, but neutral is the baseline for most individuals by default. And it, once again, only when you approach it from the outside looking in instead of the inside looking out do you come to this kind of erroneous conclusion.
Chaotic neutral. Manic pixie dream girl of alignment. The difference between chaotic neutral and true neutral is that chaotic neutral is entirely and 100% based on their personal freedom. They do what they want to do at all times. It's not that they don't care about morality, it's that they haven't even asked themselves the question, is what I'm doing good/bad? They don't care. They follow whatever their instincts tells them to do at any given time. It's less dislike of moral questions and more outright not knowing about them or truly not caring. This is often the lovable rogue archetype, the loose cannon guy, not abject evil, but not trustworthy. And also, I really associate this with D&D Fae. Jack Sparrow, to me, is the de facto example of this, but only in the 2 movies that exist. A shame they never made any more of them. Marvel, Loki is here when he stopped being the bad guy. Han Solo starts the trilogy here if Han shot first. Honestly, every Star Wars bounty hunter is here. 70% of Glub Shitos are this. Star Wars just really loves this one. Anyway, we're done with the no politic section. It's time for...
Okay, so no, once again, wrong. He's closer to right on this one, and this is why chaotic neutral is generally seen as the worst alignment to allow players to be. When you get chaotic neutral wrong, you really get it wrong. And it really causes problems because it turns into this just whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want thing. That's not what chaotic neutral really is. Chaotic neutral just means simply that all decisions are made based in the moment and that there's no real balance between selfish and selflessness. It's what they do or like what kind of moral choice they make may be I'll be a little selfish if I can get away with it and it doesn't hurt too many people, or, sure, I'll help out or I'll sacrifice a little sometimes as long as it's not too great a sacrifice. And I'm going to view basically all of these structures as whether or not they're convenient. That's essentially, structures and societies and laws and that sort of thing. I'm going to view them more or less if they're convenient. If neutral is the baseline that most people are, chaotic neutral is the guy who will slip the $100,000 candy bar into his pocket or swipe the Almond Joy if he thinks he can walk out the store with it. If the self-checkout register rings up his stuff wrong, he'll just go ahead and keep it. Or if the checkout clerk at the grocery store forgets to scan his drinks that are on the bottom of his shopping cart, he won't go back in and say, hey, you forgot to charge me, pay for it. That's neutral. Like chaotic is going to be, I'm going to do those things. True neutral, not so much. They're going to struggle with that a little bit more. But they're not going to go like steal a TV. They're not going to try and slip $500 worth of groceries through the checkout line and scan the same 27-cent item over and over and over again to try and buy $500 worth of groceries for $100. So they're not going to go to that extreme. But, like I said, they're going to view things in that microcosm and really be, they're kind of self-centered, but they're not self-centered to the point that they'll harm others.
Or the bad guy.
Duh.
Number G, lawful evil. Lawful evil is the best evil alignment. Wait, I'm supposed to be impartial. Lawful evil is evil with a plan. Lawful evil is evil, but they're not animals. They will seek to accomplish their selfish goals, and they will not hesitate to hurt people in the process. Their selfish goals might be to hurt people, but they're not just gonna go around swinging a sword. No, they'll instead take over the government, lawmaking, and economy, and use the tools of law in order to accomplish their goals. Terrifying, but also really cool. Papa Poutine is the de facto example for me, especially in the prequels. Purple Beef Jerky Man from Marvel would go here. Immortan Joe from Mad Max is this to me, which is a rarity in post-apocalyptic fiction. And I would also put Light Yagami here, tentatively though. He certainly dips into the neutrals. Harry Potter has the perfect example of this, but I vow to never talk about that cursed child of a franchise again. And that disgusting evil beast from that anime is this to a T, and it's on site, you piece of shit. Number 8.
So lawful evil, once again, same kind of issues here. Lawful evil, the best evil alignment. Though I do seem to find it, I do tend to think of lawful evil as the most effective evil alignment. Really, all lawful evil is a person who views the use of system structures and traditions as the best way for them to advance their own goals without regard for whether or not it harms others, and actually with no qualms about actively harming others, so long as it benefits them and their goals. Once again, it comes from a state of your mind already working in that fashion. It comes from a point of already having a logical and ordered mind.
Neutral evil. The white bread of evil. Neutral evil does not care even a little bit about the harm they cause as long as they get what they want. And once again, this is evil, so to some of them, what they want is to hurt others. Alignment repeats itself about 100 times, like they're not that distinct, especially when we get into the neutrals. But the difference here is that while this evil person has no qualms about breaking rules or following them, the impetus is selfishness and desire. They're not gonna go out of their way to do one or the other. It's about desire, not about how they get to that desire. Cersei Lannister, my bestie, my perfect angel, favorite character, would go here. Jabba the Hutt is very this. Ahsoka from Hunter x Hunter is this to me, although he could dip into chaotic. Honestly, most characters that armchair psychologists on TikTok, that I hate, would call a sociopath, can be put here. Number 8.
Okay, so once again, same kind of issues. It's really not that hard. The big thing is evil is selfishness. Now, the fact that he said that there's not that much difference between these alignments, it's just idiotic. It just shows that, once again, he's right that there's not a lot of difference when you're looking at it through a microscope instead of looking at it from that 1,000-yard view like you're supposed to. This is one of those situations where he is complaining that a Phillips head screwdriver is a bad tool because he's trying to turn a flathead screw with it. It doesn't work because it's the wrong tool that's being used the wrong way. And in this case, the big thing with neutral evil and lawful evil is that, both are evil, both are utterly self-serving and selfish. The lawful evil character simply is willing to delay gratification or maybe suffer some setbacks or even concede a loss every now and then because he views the system and he views the traditions and the way the system works as long-term better for him to accomplish his goals. He doesn't want to sacrifice the system in order to get this temporary win, because in the end, he's going to get what he wants in spades if he works within the system. The neutral evil character is far more willing to take that win now and deal with the consequences later, not to the extent of a chaotic evil character, but at the same time, it's all about me. And it's just a matter of, can I delay the gratification?
Chaotic evil. Finally, The other good one. Chaotic evil takes pleasure in destruction. To chaotic evil, destroying a city might not be because taking it out will win them the war, but rather the destruction itself is what they're after. They like the fraying and disintegrating of the thread that holds societies together. They're into the chaos that happens after senseless evil. To them, it's about the journey, not the destination. The Joker from The Batman is the internet's de facto example of this, but Ramsey Bolton feels like an even better example to me. If we want more clouds, we can put Art the Cloud here, who loves his job. My dreaded nemesis, an evil twin, would also go in this box, and that's all of them. Okay, so we now...
Okay, so chaotic evil. I don't like putting the Joker in chaotic evil, and I'll tell you why I don't like putting the Joker in chaotic evil. Because he is truly and totally insane. And while insane characters and insane people definitely have alignment, they tend to be bad examples of it. Why? Because as I put out there from a role-playing standpoint and a character informing standpoint, it's supposed to be a 10,000-yard view of how your brain works. Well, an insane character, by definition, their brain does not function properly. It's miswired. And while you have the people that we have called crazy and insane as a society because they fit so far outside the bubble, you also have people who legitimately their brain simply doesn't function correctly because of a chemical imbalance, or just it got short-circuited by some kind of trauma. And that's really where your Joker kind of falls into. But chaotic evil is not, oh, I just love destruction, I just love destroying things, and I revel in all the nonsense that happens after it. No, chaotic evil simply means that they are utterly self-serving, and it's all about the now. It's all about maximum benefit in this moment with no real thought to the future. They're going to go after the win right now, even if it destroys the system and makes it harder for them later. And the reason is because it's all about the here and now. They don't care about they don't see the structures and systems as anything other than a hindrance. But just like I said in my Chaotic Good video, if they can more expediently get what they want by following the laws of a given society, then they're not going to go out there and just break them for no reason. They're going to do what's most expedient for them in the moment. Now, they may break that same rule or tradition later because it's more expedient then. It's just, think of, and this is a little bit more simplistic than I'd like to say, but you can almost think of the lawful and chaotic axis as predictability. The lawful character is virtually always going to act the same way, regardless of whether or not that outcome benefits or harms their cause, because they see the net benefit at the end of the system. If you add it all up, every single time they make that decision, it most often lands in their favor because the system is valuable. The neutral character is going to be a little bit more willing to step away from the system to gain a little advantage here or there, or prevent a little drawback here or there. Trying to, quote, put their thumb on the scales and tip it a little in their favor. Whereas the chaotic character, there's no telling what they're going to do, because what they're going to do is going to be based entirely on the situation and what gets them the most in that particular instance. Because when the same kind of situation happens again later, they're just going to do what's best for them that time too, rather than that predictability.
Know what alignment is and what we actually have to play with when we make a character. But in order to understand why this is garbage, we got to understand where it even comes from. Number 2, Lawful Teacher's Pet, the history of alignment. Alignment was baked into D&D from its inception. The very first version of D&D included alignment, although not as we know it today. D&D 1, The Phantom Menace, released in 1974, had alignment, but only lawful, chaotic, and neutral. No mention of good or evil. You might think that this is actually more sophisticated by virtue of seemingly foregoing this rigid idea of morality, but it wasn't. Lawful was going to bed on time, eating your vegetables, raising your hand before speaking, and smiting the wicked and vile creatures of the world, so good. And chaotic was staying up late, not doing your homework, rummaging through the cookie jar, and murder, so evil. Neutral was ill-defined. It was like the fence sitting enlightened centrist position. Balance to the force or whatever. It's also when we first saw neutral associated with nature, which is a trend we will see carry through all of D&D. You can safely assume that any druid see at this time that isn't surrounded by mushrooms is neutral, because mushrooms in D&D are evil, except when they're not. So, all lawful things were good, all chaotic things were evil, and if you were an enlightened centrist, you were neutral. It was dumber than it is now. And that's okay, everything was dumber in the 70s, that's why we love it. In 1977, with the release of the set for
all right, time for the Bro SR folks down in the comment section to jump up and be my best friend for a few minutes, because I'm going to have to defend the 3 alignment system in the original D&D here. This shows a complete misunderstanding of how alignment worked in original Dungeons and Dragons and AD&D. It was more of a faction system back then. It was, ironically, it was more surface level than it is now as it evolved in through 2nd and 3rd edition. It was very much more I fight on this team type deal. And it was a lot more simplistic. It's and like I said, that's the ironic thing, is that it actually functions more like what he gripes about alignment not being by his misapplication of the 9 alignment system. But the 3 alignment system was not necessarily just lawful is good and evil is chaotic. It just was more about the mechanical aspect of how the characters thought. And as for neutral becoming associated with nature, there's 2 sides for that. One is because nature, by its nature, is balanced. There's good and there's what we would consider good and evil. There's the picture of the, cheetah carrying off the dead monkey that's still clutching its baby, as, oh my God, nature is so cruel. But at the same time, there's stories of, a cat taking in a possum baby and raising it as a kitten. So once again, there's balance on both sides of it. But it's also the concept that, the reason why, until they came up with the idea of unaligned, that animals were always neutral. It was because they lacked the mental capacity and individual awareness to have morality in it. Their brain only acted on instinct, and there was nothing that guided the way they thought, nor guided the way they act. It wasn't about emotion. It was simply this, do this, survive, do this, protect, do this, live.
Basic separate concepts of good and evil were formally introduced to the game. Good was, and I quote, altruism and respect for life, and evil was selfishness and no respect for life. These definitions predate the basic set, but they were codified into the game with the basic set. This basically marks the prototype for today's alignment. Lawful can be good, neutral, or evil, and so can chaotic, and so can neutral. It's the baseline after which all subsequent conceptions of alignment will happen, except for outliers that went back to only having the chaos versus order, but those are like really, really few and far between. Eberron stays being the best D&D setting. Don't get me to 500k subscribers, because if I do, I'll have to talk about more setting stuff, and I'm scared I won't be able to hold myself back from it being Eberron, and I do not have time. October is supposed to be massive already. I don't have time. Eberron played a lot with alignment, mainly by breaking convention as to what races got to be good and bad, with halflings in particular becoming not great as a general rule. Drow, orcs, a bunch were cast in opposite roles, or tangentially opposite roles. Eberron is not much for moral absolutism, but we're not going to get into what that word means yet. Regardless, 3rd edition remains basically the exact same in terms of alignment. The same cannot be said for the red-headed stepchild of the editions, the 4th.
So stepping in a little bit there, he accidentally said something correct there when he said there's a, good can be lawful, chaotic, neutral, evil can be lawful, chaotic, neutral, and neutral can be lawful, chaotic, neutral. He accidentally almost stepped on the truth there. Lawful good is a lawful flavor of good. It is not both lawful and good. This is where the classic, well, what if your law and your good conflict with each other? Which do you choose? How do you stay in alignment? You're good. You can see the system failing and go against it. You just don't often. It has to be something that is a radical enough example, or has to be strong enough that it overrides that logical part of your brain. All right, let's see what he has to do with 4th edition, because 4th edition is really where alignment just took a dump. And basically, I'm not going to get too deep into this. The RPG Pundit can really fill you in on this history, but this is where the story gamer GNS idiots got a hold of D&D and just completely ruined everything. Alignment being a clean and clear example of it. And notice it's story gamer, not narrative gamer. All right. The reason we say story gamer is because that was actually a movement at one time when their GNS theory started falling apart. When their original, when the Forge started kind of collapsing in on itself, they renamed themselves Story Games and Story Gamers to basically try and evade their shit reputation to keep their failed ideas moving, and they moved them into 4th edition.
Edition. Talking about 4th edition feels too inside baseball to make a whole video about, but maybe one day. Spoiler alert, there's plenty of good in it, but there's also plenty of bad. Alignment in 4E is, let's say, different. In 4E, there are 5 alignments: lawful good, good, evil, chaotic evil, and unaligned. This basically makes alignment a spectrum, with lawful good being the most good you can be, and chaotic evil being the most evil you can be. Neutral is completely outside of the spectrum, NB icons, and is represented by unaligned, which will make a return later. So, at the risk of giving too much of my opinion on this opinion-based channel, like actual opinion-based and not clickbait opinion-based, I have thoughts on this. This is very Paragon Renegade. This is very simplistic. Morality is even more two-dimensional here. This isn't great, but nuance. 4E also marks the point in history where D&D kind of stopped caring about alignment, like at all. And as an alignment hater, for reasons we'll see soon, I love that. Big fan of that. There was a move to decouple traditionally aligned races for PCs from their alignments that culminated now, like in today's age. And that's a very smart move. Also, the fact that the axis was just one axis, with unaligned hovering somewhere, made it a spectrum that encouraged DMs and PCs to move their characters around the axis, which in non-video game nerd terms is called by writing nerds a character arc. And those are cool. Also, and I love 5e, but I don't like how people always attribute this to 5e. I am pretty sure that 4e is the edition that stopped alignment locking paladins. Other classes had been alignment locked before. Bards and barbarians couldn't be lawful and couldn't gain more levels if they became lawful. Druids had to be neutral. Monks had to be lawful. But the worst offender was paladins, who had to be lawful and good. And it sucked. It was awful. True old school players know how bad the alignment lock pally was. And this change to get rid of the requirement is widely regarded not just as good, but the reason why paladins are now playable. And
that may be the single most idiotic and incorrect take he has had this entire video. That view is virtually only held by 5e players who started with 5e and never had alignment locked players. There really weren't a lot of 4E players. The simple fact of the matter is that the reason the crew that did 4E got rid of alignment or really changed alignment and stuff is because their whole idea was force everybody into the story, or only be gamist, only be narrativist, only be simulationist. You can't do all three. And they tried to make 4E just a very mechanical game. And when it came to stories, they didn't want restrictions on their stories from the game mechanics, so they took the thing out. But anybody who played first, second, third, basic, any of these, will tell you that removing the alignment restrictions from Paladin was an abomination. It completely destroyed what it means to be a Paladin. I'm not going to get into the mechanical ramifications where it prevented certain abilities from being used together to create more powerful characters and whatnot. But the simple fact of the matter is that is a core part of what it's supposed to be. And as I've said before, paladins are not lawful good because they have to be lawful good. Paladins are all lawful good because nobody who isn't lawful good, and not just lawful good, but an extreme example of lawful good, would ever meet the requirements to be a paladin. And to say they're unplayable, do you have any idea how many ridiculously broken paladin builds there are in 3.5? And you go all the way back to even be a paladin in AD&D, you had to have ridiculous stats. It was very difficult to even be a paladin. It was a goal to have your fighting man be good enough to be a paladin. So this whole, oh, they're not playable thing is just the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. And it is just objectively, it's an objective rewriting of Dungeons and Dragons history by somebody who doesn't know any better, because tour guide.
Was a result of 4E moving away from alignment. So, as it's often the case, but not often on the internet, 4E is complicated and nuanced. And finally, we get to present day. 5E is, to my knowledge, I tried my best, I'm sorry, I wasn't born earlier, guys, the edition that has made the most changes to alignment. 5E kept up 4E's energy of making alignment basically negligible. It kept the unaligned concept, but applied it to like the birds and the bees of the forest rather than to every single druid and ranger out there. It ended up getting rid of suggested alignments for races. It added the word typically before every alignment in a monster stat block, and then got rid of the typically, but you know, at least they tried. It states explicitly that you can ignore anything related to alignment. It has text saying that you don't gotta follow your alignment faithfully. It has no mechanics tied to it at all. When in the past there were spells and abilities that took it into account. It's free. The idea is free. It's free from alignment. Almost. And that creates its own issues because almost isn't free.
Here's the thing, it shouldn't be free. This is one of those situations, it's actually kind of an ironically a lawful thing, where you came in and you changed something without understanding what it was before you changed it. And now, oh, gee golly, there's consequences that you didn't think about. Because you just said, hey, I looked at that for 10 seconds and didn't like it, so now I'm going to fucking change it. And you did something stupid. And it's like somebody goes out there and cranks up their car and decides they're going to advance the timing on it. Because, oh yeah, I'm going to advance the timing on it. I want it to pick up a little bit more at the red light stuff. Then they wonder why it idles like shit and they can barely get it cranked up in the morning. This is something that's very much for you older guys out there. Cars now have this thing called variable valve timing in advance and retards itself on its own. You don't actually go out and change it. But way back in the day, we would pull the valve. There's actually videos of me doing that to the Z on this channel, and will be more here in the future as soon as I get my new valve springs. But you would take the valve cover off of the engine and you would go in and you would actually adjust the springs, and you would take your distributor cap and you would turn it a little bit. You would crank on, you'd move the timing chain a little bit. There's actually two little marks on it. And if they're lined up perfectly, you're right there in time, and you would either move it before or behind that notch to advance or retard the timing, and it would change the way the engine behaved. And this is where you would end up with things like the car that when it's sitting at the red light is, sounds like it's about to die because of how much it's loping and sputtering, but you whack the gas and the thing takes off like a bat out of hell. It's because the timing had been changed to be more efficient and more effective when the car is running fast, at the expense of it being kind of sputtering and hard to warm up and bad at idle. Anyway, there's your automotive lesson for the day. But basically, these people came in, busted up the engine, started doing stupid shit. Now they wonder why their car runs like crap.
Number 3, chaotic bad, no good, bad, wrong. Why is alignment bad, actually? Because alignment killed my grandma, okay? Okay, maybe not. But the actual reason is just as bad, trust. See, the thing about giving your own opinion is that no matter how many times you say that it's your own opinion, people will they'll be mad. I can allegedly, in my opinion, personally, I think for me, all I want, those that want to be mad at me will be, so I have a better plan. I can make someone else say my opinions for me. Human familiar? Sacrificial goat duty starts now.
So, just a little tidbit on opinions here. Yes, you're entitled to your own opinion. And oh, yes, this is my opinion. Just because it's your opinion, that does not excuse it from criticism, nor are all opinions equal. If you have an opinion that's based on a lot of faulty reasoning and bad information, your opinion is still shit, whether it's an opinion or not. It's just his opinion, having an opinion, like that doesn't make it a good opinion. You present an opinion of why you think this is better or worse than something else, and then you present reasons why you think it's better or worse. And if those reasons are faulty, then you probably need to change your opinion. But people like to hide behind that. Well, it's an opinion, so it can't be wrong. Yeah, it kind of can.
I go to America one time. All right, let's go. Number A, neutral asshole. It's what my alignment would do. be awful. So the Hat touched on this 3 paragraphs ago, but alignment has been the source of many a problem at the table. Many such cases. This problem used to be really bad in past editions, and then it became better with time. This could be for several reasons. It could be because we as a species have advanced in our understanding of one another and our ability to empathize with others and prioritize the well-being and fun of others, and not just ourselves at the table. Or because alignment has been de-emphasized massively in newer editions. Both possibilities are equally likely, I'm sure. Basically, alignment pushes you into extremely narrow and unnatural ways of seeing the world. It's less...
This is an example of an opinion that is wrong. All right. So no, both are not equally plausible. I mean, I guess they both are equally plausible because they're both wrong. This is not a, oh, my modern world, we're so much better at this. This is such an idiotic Gen Z bullshit opinion of we've suddenly, we found out which side of the playpen stinks, so suddenly we're smarter than everybody who came before us thing. Moral relativistic garbage that's coming out of this, just coming out of his piss hole right now. But the simple fact of the matter is that no, alignment doesn't pigeonhole you into behavior. It informs how your character thinks. It's as a player, it essentially gives you a set of questions to ask yourself before determining how your character might handle a situation. And this shit has not gone away. It's just changed from, oh, well, because my alignment, it's what my character would do. Oh, it's what my character would do. They write it into their backstory and just make up their character as an asshole. Bad players are bad players. And the reason is because we don't strongly enforce gatekeeping. And more importantly, gatekeeping via the rule, don't be a dick. Rule -1, don't be a dick. That is what fixes that. That is not a situation where alignment is the problem. That is a situation where the player is a problem. But we can't say that in the modern view of things, because when you start saying a player is a problem, you're the big evil person, and who are you to say that about them? This is a man who is projecting issues with the modern player base onto alignment and then trying to pretend that somehow it was worse in the past when it never was. He's basically saying, well, if I take my misuse of alignment and not knowing what it is and not knowing how to do it, and I project it back onto the players of the past, then I get the answer I want.
A moral compass and more a math equation. Cannot believe I'm doing math equation metaphors. Nothing less in character than that. You take one input, you put it through the alignment math equation, and that tells you what every character ever will do in every situation. This is not morality. This is a script. This flattens characters to hell and back, but also it gives an excuse to extremely antisocial behavior at the table. If you're the type of antisocial that engages in bad faith role-playing at the table and uses "it's what my character would do" as an excuse for that, alignment gives you not only more excuses to do so, but also it gives your excuses more legitimacy. It's my alignment, especially in older games, is factually a better excuse than "I feel like my character is annoying enough to do this." Especially when alignment had mechanical implications like losing levels or not being able to gain new levels, which was a thing in previous editions. And there were others. Become an Oathbreaker, lose your magic, all of those were tied to alignment. Also, on the other side of the table, it's a fantastic punishing tool for DMs. That's right, alignments could also be used by DMs, and DMs on a power trip loved them. Because if a DM doesn't like what you're doing, they can very easily take your character sheet, change the alignment, and suddenly your monk cannot gain more levels in monk. Or they used to, before they nerfed alignment to the ground, which, as I'm trying to build a case for, was a good decision. True, in newer editions, like the one that most people play, 5e, this is not the case anymore, but this is not the gotcha you think it is, because number one, oh god, this is a numbered list instead of a numbered list. One, by agreeing to that, you're also agreeing that alignment was not good for the game. Two, if you care a whole lot about your character's characterization, their personality, who they are, this can still be used as punishment. With this system, the DM becomes this weird cosmic judge of morality that assigns like value to your actions. It's wild. Are all of these cases relevant to people that act in bad faith? Yes, but people act in bad faith. You don't have to be a d all the time to make kind of a d move one time. And yes, plenty of people don't have a problem with alignment normally, but if it can be this much of a problem, what are you gaining from it?
So he's got a whole bunch of not making his point here. Everything he's saying is based off of misuse of the mechanic, misunderstanding of the mechanic, abuse of the mechanic, and it all goes back to bad player behavior. Bad player behavior is bad player behavior, period. There are not necessarily hard rules, but there are very descriptive guidelines for changing alignment and for adjusting alignment and for doing things in those older editions. And it explicitly states like you don't just change it like it's a damn cloak. Oh, give me your character sheet. I'm changing your alignment. Unless there's like magic involved that forces you into a different alignment. Legitimately, alignment only changes by small degrees over time as a combined, basically, I always say a road map. It's a road trip. Your alignment is a road trip. When I drive from Atlanta to Spokane, Washington, my alignment is northwest. Just because my car turns south every once in a while or east every once in a while does not mean that my alignment is suddenly not northwest. It's only when you start putting the whole trip together and you realize that I'm going more north or more west or more south that you say, hey, look, we need to change the alignment from northwest to southwest or southeast or whatever. And literally the only time you're going to have a knee-jerk change is if somebody does something extremely drastic, like deliberately drive southeast all the time away from northwest in a very deliberate fashion. You got a sign that says Spokane, Washington, that way northwest, New York City, that way northeast, and you deliberately make that binary decision to turn to New York City for no reason. That's the only time you start talking about a radical, quick alignment change. Otherwise, it's always part of a whole. So once again, we come back to Phillips head screwdrivers are terrible because I try to turn flathead screws with them. No, the tool is not terrible. This is user error and a misunderstanding of how it works.
You all bring stink bombs to D&D. Only the people that want to cause chaos will actually use them. True. But my question here is, what do you gain from bringing stink bombs in the first place? What's the positive?
The positive is it informs roleplay and it informs how to think in a manner in which you do not personally think. I know this is extraordinarily difficult for the young modern player and for these people who've been raised on this garbage relativistic and in this atomistic individualism that has come out really after 9/11. The fact of the matter is I am not a criminal. So when I need to play a criminal character, I need something to help guide me to be a better criminal. And the way I do that is my criminal is, say, chaotic evil. And I have a set of questions that allow me to say, hey, I'm in this situation. What would my character do? Well, are the laws and structures of society in the way? Well, they are in the way. So I'm going to ignore them. Or would this benefit me? Yeah. Basically, when you talk about evil, it's just I don't care if it damages other people. And if I'm good, I do care. So if I'm lawful good and I'm like, hey, I need to play a paladin. How do I play a paragon of virtue when maybe I'm not a paragon of virtue? Well, I approach a situation and I say, is there a way to do this within the system? Is there a way to preserve the order? Is there a way to act within the code of a paladin? Because paladins do actually have a code. Is there a way to protect tradition with this? Or does tradition have an answer for this? Does it benefit others? Does it harm others? I ask these questions and I know what my paladin's thought process would be because of that alignment. It also, from a purely mechanical standpoint, it prevents players from having a character that is built of opposing, different opposing belief systems, like such as the bard not being able to be lawful because it's antithetical to their hyper creative freewheeling mindset. It's once again, it's not that bards, being lawful is just, a decision they're not allowed to make. It's that if you had a lawful mindset, you wouldn't be a bard because that type of thinking doesn't lead to being a bard. So it also helps inform in that way, but mechanically it prevents, as I've said before, your raging sneak a smite where your rogue barbarian paladin comes up behind somebody and smites the hell out of them while raging with a sneak attack. So yes, there's mechanical implications too.
See? Boy, I swear I don't plan this. It's just I record at dinner time. Any bets on what I got for dinner? Croquetas! Whoa, croquetas! I miss Spanish food so much. Back to D&D now. Number B, true boring. The death of nuance. These dramatic video essay titles. I don't know who I think I am. I'm like one video essay title away from talking about capitalism. Alignment is a great tool to flatten storytelling into a boring, simplistic, black and white, Saturday morning cartoon level of nuance puddle. Not to be dramatic or anything. Moral absolutism is the ethical view that states that some actions are inherently, always and forever, right or wrong, good or evil. And they are one of the two, regardless of the context in which they are performed in. Murder is always evil, theft is always evil, liking and subscribing is always good. That is the only one that is actually true. That one is true. It's the only one. Do it, please. Whoever gets to decide what is evil and what is good is complicated, and we don't have time for it now, and I don't want to get into it now, but you get it. By contrast, moral relativism is the opposite. It's the philosophical posture that negates the existence of these universal moral principles. There's no inherent good, there's no inherent evil. Instead, it believes that morality itself, the concept of morality, is the product of a culture and a time period in which that culture lives. Now, both of these postures are equally valid. Just kidding. No, it isn't. Moral absolutism is absolutely wrong. If your forehead is white...
No. Moral relativism is flaming hot garbage that is responsible for the degradation of society. It is one day in the future. And actually, believe it or not, it's starting to look like it won't be that far in the future, the way a lot of your later Zennials are starting to behave and think. We are going to look back on this era of moral relativism as a just embarrassment of Western society and human history. We're going to look back on this and be like, holy crap, that was the eugenics of the early 2000s. And I do mean that. I don't mean that like, oh my God, we're, killing people for this reason or that reason, or we're, doing racial purity or anything here. But we're going to look back on moral relativism in the early 2000s the same way we look back on eugenics from the 1900s. Because in the 1900s, 1910, 1920, 1930, 1890, eugenics was like hardcore science and was like something we were all looking at. That was a major movement with real support, was eugenics. The using science to determine how to make the better human. What are the better traits to have? And it was absolutely the same thing with this moral relativist garbage. And here's the thing. It does not make flat characters. Once again, it is a 10,000 yard view. Yes, good has absolute definitions. But your character does not have to make every single individual decision in the most good manner possible in order to be a good character. A paladin can be greedy. A monk can be late all the time because he just doesn't organize his day because he enjoys being out in nature too much, or, he stops to smell the flowers or something. They can have those flaws. It's only flat if you're too stupid and uncreative to think outside of, oh, well, this is what my alignment is and what's supposed to guide my decisions. If all you can think of is, well, all my decisions have to fit in this box. That's just being a bad player, being a bad DM, and being just an uncreative individual. That is not understanding how this works. But we come to the truth of it as he starts to try and talk about moral relativism as if it's a good thing when it is just objectively garbage.
But then two fingers, you can come up with a context in which murder is the superior moral option. Ditto for literally every other one of these universal evil or good actions. You guys know that I love cooking and cooking metaphors. So of course, my example of this is cannibalism. Why not? Okay, so unless Wi-Fi access has gotten really good since the last time I checked, I'm gonna venture a conservative guess and say that to most people watching this video, cannibalism is something frowned upon. Just a guess. But that is a cultural understanding of cannibalism. There are cultures where post-mortem cannibalism is practiced, like of it. And to people raised in those cultures, that is good. It's good to do that. And I'm not even talking about like eating your enemies in war. No. I'm talking about eating your family members to help them pass on. That is a thing that some cultures believe. So to them, doing that is good. It's an act of caring for your loved ones that have passed away. People in those cultures see it as no different than how many cultures in the West see final rites. And they hope that loved ones do it to their bodies when they pass. That's consent. And people say that consent is sexy, so I guess cannibalism is sexy.
This is a piss poor example. And it just kind of shows the disingenuous nature of that kind of moral relativism. It may be seen as gross or disgusting, but cannibalism in the manner in which he is presenting it is not generally seen as evil. Cannibalism is generally seen as evil in, say, Western cultures and whatnot for the fact that it is murder when you kill somebody simply to eat them. And it goes right back to that moral absolutism of thinking of others and, as the Boy Scouts would say, do no harm. Killing something because you have to eat and it's the only way to survive and there's no other option is generally seen as something that is excusable until you get to humans. It's actually generally seen as just fine until you get to humans. Once you get to humans, it's murder. You're killing another sentient being and it's wrong. But when you're talking about, like, say, eating the placenta, or you're talking about, consuming the dead because that's their cultural norm, the reasons behind it are different, and you are not killing somebody. They are already dead. So therefore, the moral component has been removed in that regard. It's a shit, piss poor example. And it's an attempt to try and take something extreme that he thinks everybody's going to agree with, twist it into a different perspective to try and prove a point that's not really provable. Moral relativism is crap. And why he's gone off on this when talking about D&D is even worse. But he does point out why you have so many of these modern players that don't like alignment. It's because of two things. The modern player, the younger modern player for the most part, practices moral relativism because they're not smart enough to have grown out of it yet. And like I said, as a society, we are already starting to grow out of moral relativism. It will be the eugenics of the early 2000s, mark my words. But the second reason is because they all practice identity politics. And I don't mean identity politics in the actual political sense of, trying to pander to different groups. But what I mean is that their identities are wrapped up in the things they do, and they're wrapped up in their opinions. So when they go to play a game, they're self-inserting their character. It's all there. It's all how they identify. It's their power fantasy. And when something comes along and says, well, this is evil, and that decision that they're making they're being told their decision is evil, or their decision is not good, they take it as a personal attack. And it's no different than if I was playing Monopoly and every time my opponent rolled a 6, I took that as a personal affront and said that my opponent being able to roll a 6 on the die is wrong and a stupid ass mechanic and it's terrible and it doesn't work because in my worldview with my truth, 6s only occur for me. It's idiotic.
This is a D&D video. I swear I have a point. Come with me. Just walk with me. This, to be clear, is not me trying to convince anyone to pick up cannibalism as a hobby. It's me giving you an example of how culture is the thing that defines what is good and what is bad. There's nothing inherent to the action of cannibalism, even though we in the West find it disgusting. And I'm included in that group, to be clear. I'm not trying to get anybody to see cannibalism as really cool. And time defines this too within a certain culture. Cultures flip-flop in their understanding of good and bad. There are followers of a little-known religion in the audience that are truly gonna tell me that in the year of our Lord 2025 Yes, 2025. They truly do believe with their whole heart that mixing wool and linen is abjectly evil. Guess which religion I'm talking about? And yet, there are branches of this same religion that still observe this, that still believe this. Good and evil are concepts created by culture and influenced through time. And yet, alignment as it is constructed in D&D is, by its definition, morally absolutist. There is a good, there is an evil, and those are literal cosmic forces that exert pressure in the world. It's the most moral absolute position that you can take. Now, if you're a normal, well-adjusted person, which you're not, you're watching this, so you're not, let's not argue. But if you were, you might be thinking, man, this is just the game where I pretend to go into a dungeon and act like I'm a hot elf. These are not questions that actually come up in D&D when I play it. And you're 100% right. I'm 100% with you on that. The reason I'm saying this is because alignment being how it is affects games that are not about philosophical questions. My problem with D&D alignment is not that moral absolutism is a flawed philosophical position, is that it leads to boring and samey stories. That's the problem. The big bad guy being bad because he loves to do bad things because he was born bad, and the good guys being good because good is good might be a compelling narrative for ages 3 and down, but past those formative ages, you might crave a little something just a little bit more complex than that. Hell, I'm willing to bet that the stories that you love the most, the stories in fiction, are more complex than that. Lord of the Rings is always touted as like being morally absolutist, and I disagree with that assessment. You want to know why? Boromir. Is Boromir good or evil? Quickly, which one is it? It can only be one. Well,
Boromir's good, you fucking idiot. And it absolutely is morally absolutist, because Tolkien himself despised ideas of moral relativism. Once again, projecting, just trying to warp history into your idiotic modern views. And wrong. Oh, samey. You go right back into that modernist thing of we have to subvert everything, we have to change everything, we have to twist everything. Meanwhile, we all sit here and talk about how Hollywood is creatively bankrupt and they ruin everything because they have to add a twist and they have to change it. No, they have to subvert the expectations. Oh, subversion. We got to make everything morally gray. And what does everybody say? Gray is boring as hell. We want heroes, we want villains. We want people to be standing up for something. We don't want a bunch of mired muck with no form. And that's exactly what you're presenting, because you are creatively bankrupt and unable to make an actual hero be a character. And then you look at a masterpiece like Lord of the Rings, and you can't even see it when it's right in front of your face. Well, which one is it? Which one is Boromir? Is he good or evil? Is he good or evil? Answer now. He's good, you dumbass. As a matter of fact, he's lawful good. He shows it time and time again. He proves it. Yes, he's corrupted by the ring because all men are capable of evil. And that's what the ring does, is it acts on those desires. Boromir wants the ring because he thinks it can save his people. He thinks it can be a powerful weapon against Sauron. He's not taking the ring because he wants to kill hobbits. And he doesn't go to try and take it from Frodo. He doesn't just stab Frodo through the heart and take the ring. He tries to get him to give it to him, and then he tries to take it without hurting him because he's desperate, because the ring is manipulating him. But if you can't see what kind of man Boromir is, then you need to go reread, not rewatch, reread The Lord of the Rings about 500 times with an open mind and get this filth pushed out of your head.
He isn't, and he is. He is both, because he's a complex character, capable of both things. And to be clear, I am not saying that evil characters in D&D cannot do good actions. What I'm saying is evil characters in D&D will only do good actions for evil reasons. And that's a 3-year-old's understanding of morality. Every orc being bad and stupid and chaotic is a problem because it's boring, which is a much bigger sin, in my opinion, to be in D&D than literally any other reason why that might be bad. It's boring that you can meet a character in D&D and you get one look at them and you know exactly how are they gonna act in every position because you can guess their alignment. It's boring. It makes the game more boring. It narrows the stories that you can tell. It is just a net negative on the game. In my opinion, I said it. You can't be mad. I said it.
Your opinion can be wrong. It can be founded on faulty assumptions. It can be based on wrong information. And it is. Why do I get the feeling that Pointy Hat's campaigns last like 6 and 7 games and peter out and fall apart? because it doesn't seem like he knows how to make an actual character that functions. And I mean, this is I was pretty ambivalent towards Pointy Hat before this. This just makes me lose virtually all respect for anything he says about the game, like at all. Like this just really just makes me kind of push him. Like I would honestly say that based on this video alone, I would recommend Jenny D over this idiot.
In my opinion, you can't be mad. Number C, lawful limiting. What if my character was worse? I touched on this before, but it's the biggest point that alignment defenders bring up, so it deserves its own number. Letter, no, whatever, you get it. Alignment is limiting. It's limiting for players, it's limiting for DMs, it's limiting for everybody involved. And yet, there's a lot of pushback on this. I often see this pushback attributed by 5e babies to old school players. And I don't think that's right. True old school players, in my experience, are much more likely to be like, yeah, whatever, that orc NPC is a bartender and he's generally nice. Sure, let's go. Rather than go like, orcs by their very nature are evil, and it is baked on every cell in their body, and we must kill them on sight. It is stated by the sacred texts of Wikipedia. That is, from what I've observed, a very 3.5e baby opinion to have. It's this reverence to canon and what has come before. And it comes from the belief that canon trumps all, which is, to me, a very weird stand to take on a game that has homebrew baked into every single strand of its DNA, but sure. My point here is not to strawman. I understand and know where this comes from, and I kind of respect it. And what you want out of D&D is like old Flash Gordon or old school sci-fi serials or like very basic, like beginning of epic fantasy, then sure, alignment will do the trick. But here's my hot take. You don't need alignment to do that. You don't need all drow or all orcs to be evil to do exactly those stories. They don't have to be intrinsically evil. You can have groups of them that act evilly. Great word. I'm sure I'm convincing you with all these great words I'm using. You can have groups of people that vehemently oppose things that your heroes believe in. Those can be evil, like they can be things that oppose your heroes. These stories do not rely on alignment being a thing for them to happen. They really don't. The proof of this is in the pudding. There's no alignment in Lord of the Rings. There's no alignment in Flash Gordon. It's not a thing that exists on fiction that is like based on what we're talking about.
There absolutely is. Just because the writer didn't write out a 9 alignment system and say, I'm going to assign this to each character, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is, it's very ironic, and it actually, it makes a lot of sense, because this is the same kind of thinking that leads to his incorrect definitions and applications of alignment, that outside in instead of inside out thinking. He sits here, he doesn't understand that alignment is there as a guide to help players develop the thought process for these characters who are not like them. And these authors go through some of the same things when they are developing these characters. The complete lack of understanding of this. I mean, he speaks as if he's trying, like, oh, this is, deep and in-depth analysis. This is so much research. You haven't even cracked the first book of trying to understand how any of this works. And all these characters can very easily be put into one of those 9 alignments. Very easily. And you've already proven that you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground by your concept of Boromir. Why? Because Boromir made a few decisions that don't fit specifically in your own pigeonhole definition. You don't understand that. He said earlier, they're only going to make the evil. They're only going to do this decision if it benefits them. No, an evil character can very much make a self-sacrificing good decision. It's just not the norm. Once again, road trip. I turned southeast. I'm still going northwest. The only reason I turned southeast is because I have to make the loop to get on the damn interstate. But I still made a southeast turn.
Alignment not being there is just allowing you to tell those stories, the ones that I just talked about, and other stories. It's just more playground. In my research for this video, I found like several threads of people bemoaning that like paladins don't get to be paragons of good anymore. And I think that's emblematic of this issue. They believe that because paladins are not alignment locked anymore. But here's the thing, they can be that. They can be paragons of good or not. They can be both now. The previous option was never taken away. It was just added to more options. Do you know what I mean? You can have orcs that have found a way to coexist with others. You can have paladins that follow an evil god or have pledged themselves to an evil cause. And you can have the opposite. It is literally widening the pool of the things you can do in this imagination game. My point is...
No, it's not. It was never restricted. You already had evil paladins. Fallen paladin, anti-paladin, blackguard. They already existed. Dark warrior. They have their opposite. Just because you didn't bother to look them up or understand that's what they were, doesn't mean that they didn't exist.
De-emphasizing alignment has not taken away what was there before. It has added more options. So, why is it still there? Why won't alignment leave? Why hasn't it been deleted from the game? Why has it only been nerfed? In de-emphasizing alignment, defanging it, if you will, they have made it this sort of dead weight on the game. A flawed system that constrained creativity and limited your options is now just dead weight because it has been nerfed to the ground. And yet, this system has not been eliminated. Why? Why is alignment still a thing? Number 4, neutral capitalism, the branding beast. Back to me, baby. So I haven't infiltrated Wizards HQ yet. So what I'm about to say might possibly be classified as wild and baseless conjecture. Okay, fine, it is wild and baseless conjecture, but I think I might be right, so please listen. Remember the intro for this video? No? Oh, okay. In the intro of this video, I called alignment D&D's largest footprint in pop culture. I am convinced that the resurgence in the term chaotic that happened like 2-3 years ago is directly related to that being a D&D thing. People make alignment charts for virtually every show and concept on Earth, from ways to render reflections in video games to this as a company, especially a media company, which is what Wizards of the Coast.
So we got some echo chamber here. Basically some being too close to seeing for the forest for the trees type deal. D&D is nowhere near the cultural phenomenon he thinks it is. It does not have anywhere near the social penetration it does, and especially not something as is built in as the alignment system. If I walked through Birmingham, Alabama and stopped 1,000 people and asked every last one of these random people what alignment is or where it comes from, I seriously doubt more than maybe 100 of them, if that many, would even be able to tell me, and probably less than 5 would be able to actually come, less than 50 would actually be able to come up and tell me anything significant about the alignment system. D&D is not as cultural a phenomenon. It's not part of the brand. It's not now. There's an argument that they're just not getting rid of it because it's basically a core part of D&D that's always been there. And if they took it away, they knew that it's a differentiator in a lot of ways. But that's very much within the TTRPG niche. And I don't know where he's getting this idea that, there's a sudden resurgence in the use of the word chaotic. That's just not accurate. I mean, I've been on this earth over 40 years, and I remember hearing people describe things as chaotic and people as behaving in a chaotic fashion my whole life. He's just not, he's once again just not accurate on this. And why do I get the feeling that he's about to go on some anti-capitalist nonsense?
Cultural capital is the most important capital you can have because it prints other capital, including money capital, which is the one they want. Google couldn't pay to make Google as a verb happen. Google had to have that happen through cultural weight alone. Only the stupidest of the stupid would take that level of cultural capital, having a verb named after your product, and just throw it away. That'd be so stupid. D&D doesn't have a verb named after it, but it does have more cultural capital than literally anything else on the TTRPG market. And alignment has breached containment and crossed over into general pop culture. And I think that's why we won't see alignment disappear. You would have to be very stupid. You would have to be very stupid Now, this might sound like an indictment, and it just isn't. Companies are here to make money, and it would be a very stupid thing to berate one for doing just that. As in, with regards to something like this, which at the end of the day is not hurting anybody other than me, because I don't like it, and just doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. So, alignment has been reduced, like a male anglerfish, to just dangle off of the great female anglerfish that is D&D. This is it. This is the weirdest metaphor on the channel so far. Too obtrusive, backwards, and straight up bad to remain relevant in the game, but too culturally relevant to be exercised for good. But this purgatory is also really annoying. It keeps us fighting about what it was, what it could be, why it should remain, why it should be yeeted into the sun, and it keeps people like me making videos like this. It's annoying. I understand why it's still there, and yet I am allowed to complain. I did it. I found it. True neutrality. But it doesn't have to be this way. Number 5.
Yeah, he's just not correct on that. Now, this one is purely just opinion. I mean, maybe there is something going on where they think it's some kind of branding, but I do not see that level of penetration. If you notice all the, it's breaks over into pop culture and it's, all these memes and stuff. These are D&D players and D&D people applying alignment to their other hobbies. It's still all very much within the fantasy and sci-fi literature area that they do this kind of thing, and it all traces back to a Dungeons and Dragons or a TTRPG group. It's not like you're suddenly seeing this pop up on Real Housewives of Middle Tennessee State or whatever. You're not seeing it. We're not going to the Avengers movie, and the Avengers movie is actually too close. We didn't go watch the F1 movie and see Brad Pitt sit down and pull out his D20 or anything like that, or make a reference to how his co-driver was chaotic neutral. It ain't that big a thing, buddy. You're off on that one. That ampersand, D and D, those are the things that have penetration with Dungeons and Dragons that need to be protected for a capitalistic standpoint.
Aligned. Store-bought is bad, so you can make your own. This wouldn't be a Pointy Hat video if I just complained about something for 20 to 30 minutes. That would be only half of a Pointy Hat video. No, we're gonna try to fix this thing. And my first option to fix it is to not. You can throw it out. I don't know. I haven't played with alignment in like years. 5e has made it extremely easy to throw the whole baby out with the lawful neutral water. You can arguably do this too in 4e. No class is beholden to any alignment. Paladins don't really detect evil and good anymore. They detect fiends and celestials and fae, an inherently better ability in every possible way. No spells are affected by alignment, and you can just make the deities and the planes super associated with alignment just a way that they are run, rather than divine mandate beholden to the stupidest conception of morality and a nebulous definition of order.
So, do you think maybe some of the brokenness and power creep that has come in and the more powerful use of spells and whatnot maybe just be a tiny bit tied to the fact that somebody took something off without thinking about why it was there first? Maybe because somebody tore that fence down because they perceived it as blocking their path, but didn't realize that it's what kept the bull in the pen.
Is very much an option. I would argue it's the option, but you don't need me to tell you that. What if you want to pay respect to the history of the game? What if you like the idea of a world where morality is like gravity, a law of the universe? What if you play too many JRPGs and order versus chaos sounds like a good campaign hook? What if you want to use demons and devils and celestials, I would know, I love them, and you want to have them be these forces of evil and good? What if you want alignment, but you don't want it like that? Well, here's my second option for you. Make it relative. Yes, I said myself that alignment is, by its very nature, morally absolutist. But it doesn't have to be. Alignment is not a real thing. It's a play-pretend system for our beloved play-pretend game. Alignment has been conceived as morally absolutist, but it doesn't have to be. We can conceive alignment to be morally relativist instead. Let me try. Good, evil, law, chaos. These forces govern our universe and all others. And yet, they are slaves to our conception of them. Each of these strives to grow and defeat the other. And in their constant fighting, in their incessant push and pull, they create true equilibrium. They seek to defeat their opposite by growing their influence, and they do that by growing the numbers of those beholden to their principles. Good grows when good actions are performed by us, and so does evil. When law triumphs over chaos, law grows stronger, and when chaos overcomes the rules of man, it grows stronger too.
Okay, dumbass. Define law, chaos, good, evil. How do we have good actions with no definition? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going out to fight the evil bad guy because I'm good. And you know what he says when he walks out of his house? I'm going to fight the evil bad guy because I'm good. Why? Because we're morally relativistic morons. And everything we think we do is good, and everything they think they do is bad. Every time we break a rule or a law or something, we justify it. I mean, this is the kind of idiot who actively believes shit like, our boy was such a good boy, he didn't break into that man's house because he's bad. He broke in because he was trying to get a present for his grandma. He broke in because he needed new shoes for school. That completely justifies his breaking into somebody's house. He didn't need to be shot. This is idiotic, and right here it falls apart. Doing more good strengthens good. Doing more evil strengthens evil. Doing more chaotic makes it more chaotic. Doing more lawful makes it more lawful. What are these things? Because if your definition and my definition are different, then we ain't increasing or decreasing shit in the world.
But these forces are said to be slaves to mortals because mortals decide what is good, what is evil, what is chaos, and what is law. The leader of a nation that sends their forces to murder and conquer their neighbors will strengthen the forces of good if they do so while believing wholeheartedly that their conquest is actually saving those conquered from a fate worse than death, bringing them into the fold of true righteousness. The rightful prince that vanquishes the tyrant to end their reign will grow the forces of evil with their murder if they do so purely out of selfish reasons, regardless of how many lives are improved by the tyrant being gone. Said tyrant strengthened the forces of order when they instituted martial law if the tyrant did so to bring order to the unruly masses, while a druidic circle successfully stopping the constant expansion of an ever-growing polluting metropolis will strengthen the forces of chaos because they did so to safeguard the boundless hegemony of nature. Good, evil, law, and chaos are the forces that govern our universe and all others, and yet we govern them. You know what I mean? Instead of making alignments this sort of divine mandate.
Does anybody else notice that when he starts trying to give his relativistic definitions of good and evil and chaos, and how the tyrant strengthens law and how the druid strengthen chaos, that he had to fall back on those absolutist definitions? Why aren't the druids doing what's lawful? Why aren't they strengthening law? Because it's the natural order that they're protecting. Huh? Why is the tyrant not strengthening the force of chaos? Because what he's really doing is he's breaking down and he's interrupting these people's lives and preventing them from doing what they were doing and preventing them from carrying on their traditions, and therefore he's disrupting their traditions and becoming more chaotic. Why? Oh, because you gave definitions to them, absolutist definitions to them. You gave them meaning, and somehow your relativism fell apart. The way to fix it is to be relativistically absolutist, because your entire philosophy is flawed and it does not work. When it is applied to reality, when you put it in the real world, it crumbles and disintegrates, and you have to revert back to what works to even try and push the narrative.
Where someone has decided what each of the corners mean and categorized each action and each person into a little box. It's something based on culture, on nurture, on context, on nuance. Imagine the implications of this. The fiends that terrorize a culture all about law and order would be very different from the fiends that terrorize a nomadic culture all about self-expression. Ditto for celestials. Good can take many different forms. And in our history, we have so many examples of people doing unspeakable things while 100% believing they were doing the right thing. What I like the most about this is that this conception of alignment allows you to tell the same stories that the current conception of alignment allows you to tell, but it also allows you to tell dramatically different ones. It's relative, baby. We love nuance. But how does this translate into actual character building? Well, I have a video on how to make a D&D character that really works. It's one of the most popular videos on my channel. Maybe check it out. And if you want to talk more evil and chaos, how about a video on the baddest baddies? Demons! I made a whole video based on their chaotic evil thing. All right, don't forget your alignment shift scroll. Bye. Mwah.
All right, so yeah, that was bad. Like, that was awful bad. Pointy Hat is, like I said, a 5e tourist. He's a tour guide. He very much is a product of a modern mindset, and it is painfully obvious. This video is awful. Pretty much everything he says in it is wrong. And if you want a way to not do alignment correctly, this is a great way to look at it. If you want a way to make sure that alignment really, you want a self-fulfilling prophecy about alignment being bad for your game, he's a great place to go to. But seriously, I mean, you're better off just going to Jenny D or the Dungeon Dudes or somebody for advice in this, because this is bad. And really, that's all I can say about it. Is it's been a long time since I have literally seen somebody get so much wrong over a course of time without even really accidentally stumbling on things that were right. Anyway, what do you guys think? This is going to be a booger to edit. Once again, I'm going to apologize for some of the choppiness. YouTube decided I needed 5,000 advertisement breaks. Plus, I mean, he had all these, chunks of music and clips and stuff that I had to cut out, which hopefully it's not going to make this too hard to follow. But anyway, guys, like, share, subscribe, check out my Patreon membership and all that fun stuff. And I'm going to keep bringing this kind of stuff to you as best I can. And I'll see you guys next time.